Good evening. I shall resign the presidency at noon tomorrow.
This is an historic day, the only time a president has ever resigned from office.
Nixon knew about the Watergate cover-up.
The man who has committed the greatest felony in American history will never stand trial.
I've had an idea for an interview, Richard Nixon.
You're a talk show host.
I spent yesterday watching you interview the Bee Gees.
Weren't they terrific?
Why would I want to talk to David Frost?
I got $500,000.
Really?
Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for Broadway Beat, and welcome to Frost Nixon from Stage to Screen. In summer of 1977, the televised Frost Nixon interviews attracted the largest audience for a news program in the history of American television. Over 45 million viewers tuned in. Award-winning playwright and screenwriter Peter Morgan's electrifying play on the subject, called Frost Nixon, first premiered at London's Dunbar Warehouse in 2006 under the direction of Michael Grandage and starred Frank Langella as Richard Nixon and Michael Sheen as David Frost. The two stars recreated their roles on Broadway in April of 2007, winning Langella his third Tony Award. The show closed on August 19, 2007, and just 5 days later, principal photography began on the film version, directed by Academy Award winner Ron Howard. The film is currently playing in select cities and will open nationwide on Christmas Day, December 25th. Enjoy our look at Frost Nixon from Stage to Screen.
You know, if you want to put the record straight, I'd at least talk to him.
Who?
David Frost, the British talk show guy.
Why would I want to talk to David Frost?
Because a while back he wrote asking for an interview.
Oh,
we didn't get back, frankly. We thought it was a joke. But if you want to get your side of the story across, he'd be the guy who'd let you.
David Frost? I thought we were doing one with CBS.
We are. I just figured doing it with Frost would be a lot easier than doing it with Mike Wallace.
Well, it would, but it would have a lot less credibility.
But we could get better money.
Really?
What has this experience been like for you with working on Frost Nixon?
It's been fantastic because it started a long time ago. I mean, the play was brought to us at the Donmar in London. We put it on there. It took off. We took it into the West End. It took off there, and now we've come over to Broadway, and it seems to have taken off here. So it's been a very exciting experience, and it's been a process that's been going on longer than a normal run of a play for me. Being involved with something for over a year is no mean feat, and it's been an enjoyable experience as well. As you know, we've come to America with the same two originating cast members, and it's been wonderful creating another team of actors around them, and so it's stayed fresh for that reason. For me, it's been really exciting.
It's been really, apart from the first 2 or 3 weeks when I thought I'd made a terrible mistake that I couldn't do it, it's been one of the great highlights of my career to date. You know.
How did you capture him? Did you look at video? Did you watch the actual interviews?
Yeah, I sort of jumped into a vat of Richard Nixon research, something I rarely do, but I felt obligated to do it with this guy, you know.
And working with Michael Sheen, the two of you, the ping pong match the two of you have off each other, talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful to have opposite you a stage animal, and Michael is a stage animal, so we are able to read each other's thoughts. We discuss what we're doing precious little. We hardly ever say, if I do this, you'll do that. We are so attuned to each other's rhythms as actors that we don't need to discuss it. So it changes night to night, faster, slower, louder, softer. Sometimes it's angry, sometimes it's empathetic. It's really a wonderful relationship, and we don't question it.
Now, looking back on your final year in office, well, do you feel you ever obstructed justice or were part of a conspiracy to cover up or obstruct justice?
No, I don't. And I'm interested that you use the term obstruction of justice. You perhaps have not read the statute with regard to the obstruction of justice.
Well, as it happens, I have.
Oh, you have, you say. Well, then, you'll know it doesn't just require an act. It requires a specific corrupt motive. And in this case, I didn't have a corrupt motive. What I was doing was in the interest of political containment.
Well, be that as it may, the direct consequences of your actions would have been that 2 of the convicted burglars would have escaped criminal prosecution. Now, how can that not be a cover-up or obstruction of justice?
I think the record shows, Mr. Frost, that far from obstructing justice, I was actively facilitating it. These men, Haldeman, Ehrlichman, I knew their families. I knew them since they were just kids. Oh, yeah, but you know, politically, the pressure on me to let them go, that became overwhelming. So I did it.
I cut off one arm, then I cut off the other, and I'm not a good butcher. And I have always maintained what they were doing, what we were all doing, was not criminal. Look, when you're in office, you gotta do a lot of things sometimes that are not always, in the strictest sense of the law, legal. But you do them because they're in the greater interests of the nation.
Right, wait, just so I understand correctly. Are you really saying that in certain situations, the president can decide whether it's in the best interests of the nation and then do something illegal?
I'm saying that when the president does it, that means it's not illegal.
I'm sorry?
Nixon the human being and Nixon the politician, you know, if you separate them, you know, you can't help but feel for someone who found life so difficult. I mean, communication, friendship, and then you look at someone like Frost, who finds life, certainly socially, very easy. He's very naturally gifted at communicating with people, making friends, being liked. And Nixon, quite the opposite, really. Suspicious of people, wounded, probably didn't have many close friends, an unhappy marriage, a very lonely man. So for me, just as ingredients, I'm already excited when you think about bringing these two people together. And the sort of, you know, Frost had a great intellectual insecurity. He just wasn't taken seriously. And the one thing you could never lay at Nixon's door is the charge that he was stupid. And particularly when you make comparisons with current incumbents of the White House, I mean, you know, he was a formidable thinker.
It's about two men who are circumstances draw together, who are kind of pitted against each other in some way. Both have a lot at stake. It becomes clear that the enterprise that they're embarking upon is going to have an element of competition to it, and that there can be only one winner, and that the loser stands to lose a very high stakes game, and those stakes become clearer and clearer, certainly to Frost as the story goes on.
We're not going to let that happen, either of us. We're going to show those bums. We're going to make them choke on our continued success, our continued headlines, our continued awards and power and glory. We are going to make those mothers choke. Am I right?
You are. Except only one of us can win.
Yes. And I shall be your fiercest adversary. I shall come at you with everything I got. Because the limelight can only shine on one of us.
This story reminds me that something that I thought would never really happen in this country again has in fact occurred, and that is a sort of a breakdown in the citizens' trust of its government. The relevance that I felt watching the play was kind of profound, because it was, on the one hand, immediate, and I was connecting it to the Bush administration being at war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the you know, the alleged abuses of power that were being discussed constantly, but I also was drawn back to 1977, when I, as a young American, was trying to heal my feelings of mistrust for the government as a result of Vietnam and Watergate, and was watching these interviews and feeling like I needed some closure. I needed the satisfaction of, you know, a spotlight being put on the truth. And I relived that through the story as Peter Morgan has written it.
I think the thing about Nixon is that he has been so often, you know, imitated and demonized, and certainly was, you know, by me. You know, when I was a kid, I used to come home from school and you know, watch the Watergate hearings. It was like this amazing kind of piece of theater that I was really kind of obsessed with as a teenager. and certainly the biggest, in my mind, one of the biggest forces of evil at that time was Richard Nixon. He was really like for a left-wing kind of counterculture kid, he was the guy that we really loved to hate. And the thing that I think is fascinating about the movie and especially about Frank's portrayal is that he is really humanizing this guy and really getting to a really kind of deeper level about just trying to piece together what was obviously a complex and kind of fascinating character.
Frost is just not in your intellectual class, sir. You're going to be able to dictate terms, rebuild your reputation. If this went well, if enough people saw it, revised their opinion, you could move back east way earlier than we expected.
You think?
I'm certain.
It would be. It's so good to go back to where the action is. The hunger in my belly is still there, John. I guess it all boils down to Watergate, huh?
That's nothing to worry about, sir. It's not as if there's going to be any revelations. Stuff's been combed over 1,000,000 times. No one has pinned anything on you.
I think the Nixon story resonates today. I think the reaction to the film and the play tend to underline that, I think, in the sense that Peter Morgan went out of his way. I think he was confident. He was confident in that first ever meeting that he could make this Frost Nixon seem, although it was historic and the fact that it was famous for 30 years and so on, that was important, nevertheless, basically, that he could make it a modern story. Not by changing it particularly, but just because of the issues. And when people went to see the play, I think it was true, you heard them talking afterwards, and when they went to see it, they were talking afterwards not about, a piece of, archive or whatever, but they were talking about the issues as they affect people today. So that's what gives it its modern oomph, as it were, and that is one of the things, for instance, is that with whatever the phrase is used, in the last 30 years, a lot of politicians have been as economical with the actuality, as it were, as Richard Nixon was, and they're more geared to that now, and so that thing has a resonance too. That people are more aware of the fact of their politicians not necessarily being as truthful as they might be.
I think one of the most important things to say to anybody who's going to watch it is that it's not a political film. It's not about politics at all. It's not in the sense of telling a political story. It's a human story. It's about being at the very bottom of the barrel and scrambling out, trying to find a way to crawl out and use whatever elements you have inside yourself to get back to a place you used to be and had a hand in letting go of. And I think the film, in that sense, can appeal to a lot of people, because they're not just going to go and watch a piece of history unfold. They're going to watch someone who self-destructed try desperately to get back, and I think that's universal.
Frost has hired 3 crack investigators.
Can I be crack 1?
Can I be deep crack?
Can I shake his hand?
After everything he's done in this country?
Are you kidding me?
Pleasure to meet you.
Mr. President. That was devastating. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to get over that.
Frost is just not in your class, sir. You're going to be able to rebuild your reputation.
This entire project is a joke.
I do hope that isn't coming out of your own pocket.
I wish my pockets were that deep.
I'm in this for everything I've got.
There's a reason they call him Tricky Dick. Stand by to roll tape.
You had a pleasant evening last night?
Yes.
4, 3, 2.
Did you do any fornicating?
And cue David.
The American people need a conviction. I'd like to give Richard Nixon the trial he never had. Democracy depends on it.
But
not going to let that happen. We're going to make them choke on power and glory.
Why didn't you burn the tapes?
I didn't want to take any questions on Watergate.
Shut it down. I will ruin you if it takes the rest of my life.
What have I done?
If in this interview Nixon exonerates himself, that would be the worst crime of all.
3, 2, cue David.
Are you really saying the president can do something illegal?
I'm saying that when the president does it, that means it's not illegal.
I'm sorry?